Please explain why high cap rate is not a good deal. It is a good deal when you're buying. It's not a good deal when you're selling. When you're buying, a high cap rate is good. Did I make that clear or not? Okay. When you're selling, you want to sell at a low cap rate, which means you're getting more value out of the deal. Not understanding the relationship between NOI and how it affects cap rate. Well, if you look at the formula, you should be able to understand that because cap rate is determined from the NOI. If the NOI is high, you got more value. The higher your net operating income, the higher your value. So look at the formula and study it. I hope that comes clear to you because you're definitely going to need to know the answer to that. Anytime you buy a property with a NOI and you increase the NOI, you've increased the value of the property. And that's your job. Buy them where the NOI sucks and fix the NOI, and that's how you build value in income-producing properties. Let's get into buying strategies on page 35 so that we can start talking about how to construct offers. Now, guys, I got 13 ways to buy property here without using your money. And on page 35, you might want to just take that list there, 1 through 13, and make your own chart of it and post it up where you can see it all the time. Because this is the list you will scan once we go over it and you understand it, to see if you can figure out a better way to buy the property than what comes to your mind immediately. You scan this list. Would this property work with subordination? Could I get a private loan to do the down payment? All this stuff that's on the list. There's 3 or 4 of these things that I use much more often than the others. We will cover them right now. Knowing what we are going to discuss in this chapter is the difference between whether you can buy property without using your money or whether you're like everybody else out there trying to buy property and have to come up with money to buy it. So this is a very important session here, and I'm going to go through some examples of this while I'm at it and show you some properties that I'm currently working on or have worked on. Some succeeded and some failed. At the same time, you'll see what Rock and I are working on. This is Rockefeller Johnson, a living legend. Rock's been out doing business today, and got some good news today for us. Rock, why don't you just tell them where we met, how we met, and all that stuff?
Well, I was actually, we met in Vegas. No, that's not true. Actually, we met right up the street at the Harvey Hotel about 3 years ago. Ron came in and did a one-day seminar and told everybody why you should invest in this program, and I was one of the ones sitting in the audience. And we bought the pitch and committed a fair sum of money, and it's been a remarkable experience ever since. And I think this is probably as good a place as any. If you really capture what Ron is sharing with you right now and apply it, just do your part, which is to go and try and apply half of what he's sharing with you, I'm telling you, you're in for an unbelievable run. Our net worth has just exploded. Our cash flow is following. Our recognition in the community has grown enormously. We're said to be the biggest developer in one part of the city after about 6 months of being in the area, which, that's not something that we wanted, but it's a fact, and we owe that to Ron in no small way.
You started in your first 2 years, of course, you were 100% single family.
Yes.
In fact, you made $50,000 on your first deal, didn't you?
That's correct.
And then it was at the MIS last March that you came, and I did about, maybe a couple-hour session on commercial property.
Right.
And that lit you up because you really weren't that heavily involved in commercial prior to that, but you had some kind of experience. Tell us about your previous experience before you even got into residential.
Well, for the past 20 years, I've been a professional investor. I was a Series 26, 24, 6, 7 registered securities representative. And I raised money for oil and gas ventures and had a lot of insurance training. And we had gone to Tampa after, and what Ron said was true, we did make $50,000 on our first venture, but we didn't have a clue as to how we did that. And we recognized, my golfing buddy said, man, if you learn something about what you're doing, you probably could really make some money, right? And he said he was introduced to Ron and his programs 5 or 6 years earlier, and I knew that to be the case, so I came out to the program literally down the street of the Harvey. And we started out in the ugly house business and, did pretty well, Jill, $15,000, $20,000 a pop. And I was walking down the aisle at Home Depot, and I said, man, there's something wrong with this picture. Because I don't remember what I was buying, but I shouldn't have been out there doing it. And I said, for the same time and effort that we're taking to make $15,000 and $20,000, I'm used to putting together deals where we drill a well and it's $3 or $4 million. I think that same thing applies to real estate. The biggest difference is it's not, you don't have to raise all the cash as we did in oil and gas. You have to, there's a lot of leverage. And that's the big difference. Banks love real estate. And I said, well, maybe if we applied some of the hard work we've applied over the 20 years to real estate and we couple that with someone like Ron as a partner, and in Vegas he was talking about partnering with students. So I got pretty fired up about that. I said, well, I can do my
I know what I was getting into, though, I'll tell you that. Woo.
So that's it.
Your experience prior to getting into this commercial stuff, though, was not in commercial property, was it?
Not at all.
No. So really you've learned most of what you know in the past few years where you've been in the real estate world by putting the pieces together, by hanging around the right people and just basically talking it up and acquiring knowledge as fast as you can go.
Having been in investments, the basic thought process is the same, whether it's real estate, oil and gas, or whatever. You've got risk and you've got rewards. And you try to mitigate or minimize the risk. And there are ways to do that. You have to figure out what is the most speculative and usually the highest return, and then what is the least speculative and usually the most conservative. Same thing applies in real estate. But the big difference is you got a lot of leverage because a lot of the banks and financial institutions love real estate.
As we go through these scenarios of ways to buy property, we will uncover the properties that we have here in Texas. I think I got them all in here. And we'll discuss them, and then I'll pick Brock's brain on how he found them, since he wasn't here this morning for that conversation, and what maybe where we're at with them, because we keep learning new stuff daily, learn some cool stuff today. And as I told you earlier, it's just a matter of getting in the game and then letting the game play itself out and moving your cheese every single day around the board. And man, in fact, I'll tell you, you tell me, since we started this thing out here in Dallas, which is I don't even know how many months ago now, probably 10 months ago or so, I don't know. Ain't nothing the same as it was. And it just evolved. And we both learned a lot during this process. Some of the things we'd never do again.
Absolutely.
Some of the things we should have done more of. Some of the things we should have done less of. And only because we're in the game. As I recall, the first project that Rock brought me, basically I told him to shove off. It looked like crap to me. I mean, first project that he brought me was a 40-acre piece of land. The guy's on $14 million for it. I said, you're out of your mind. There ain't no land worth $14 million for 40 acres. Well, then we got in a conversation, and I got to learn more about it. And I'll come back to that when I get to it. Let's get started on page 36. We'll talk about subordination. Subordination is going to be a very important tool to you, even more so than it has been in residential, because subordination is a common tool to use in the world of commercial property. And I'll go through you got a couple examples in your book, actually. And I look at subordination two different ways. See if I can make you understand this. One use of subordination was when I'm trying to give the seller a little bit of money and I want to borrow that little bit of money plus some to buy the property, satisfy their cash needs, and get the job done. Another use of subordination is if I'm willing to go get a loan for about 75% of the property value and just have the seller take back a permanent second. Either way, subordination means the seller is taking a second mortgage, allowing you to go get a new first mortgage. That make sense? That's all subordination is. You ask the seller to go in second position so you can get a lender to go in first position. It's a dynamite tool for raising capital. Now, why would I want to do that? The answer is simple. Tomorrow when we get into financing, If I'm borrowing money from private lenders, the number one criteria to determine whether they're going to pass or play is loan-to-value ratio. If I can keep the loan-to-value ratio down low, it makes it much easier to get it funded. That means the seller is willing to owner finance and go in second position so that I can borrow enough, so again, to buy it and fix it and then go sell it or refinance it, taking both the seller out and the first mortgage out. Everybody following me? Okay. In your first example in the book, you got a purchase price of $1 million with a down payment of $100,000. The seller's second for $900,000. Notice the word second behind the word seller. The seller's consented that I go borrow $300,000 on a first mortgage, of which, of course, the $100 to the seller comes out and the $100 for rehab cost and $100 to you minus closing cost. Now I got a first for $300 and a second for $900. I owe $1.2 million on the property. Now I wouldn't want to do this if the property was only worth $1.2 when I got through with it, would I? No. My exit is to buy it, fix it, and refinance it, and either sell it or keep it, put a permanent loan on it. In my example up here, under example, it says that the property is worth $1.8 million after I buy it and spend $100,000 on it. So I got a $1.8 million value. The top of page 37, I go refinance it for 75% of its value. So I refinance it for $1,350,000. If I do that, how much do I owe on it? 1.2. And how much of that is to the seller? 900,000. And who thinks we're going to go pay the seller 900,000 without trying to do what? Get a discount. Okay. Will the deal work if the seller doesn't discount? Yes. Will it work better if they do? Yes. So do I win either way? Okay. I've used the numbers that make sense to where I win if the worst happens. Remember, you guys have got to learn to make good money with bad numbers. That means the deal has got to work out worst case scenario, not best case scenario, before you go into the deal. If it won't work out worst case, don't do a deal. Or take a risk, your choice. Worst case is I can't discount it. I got to refinance 1.35. I still pull out cash at that closing. I pulled out cash at the first closing, and I still got 25% equity in the property. Ain't nothing wrong with that deal. We'll take those all day long. And if you look on further down, you'll see that subordination is also used to buy properties. Now, it's very traditional and very normal. And you will get very few commercial mortgage brokers that'll balk if you say this simply: tell the seller, I'll go borrow all I can if they'll take a second mortgage back for the balance. That's a very common offer. It's a common offer. What's the seller get out of it? Whatever you can borrow. Naturally. What's the agent get out of it? Commission on the whole thing. He don't care if the seller takes back a second or not. It's none of his. He's getting paid the same. What do you get out of it? You get into the deal with none of your own money, assuming you can find a lender who will let you borrow the money with no skin in the game, which is another slang term you better get used to. Means you don't have any money invested. And God, you don't know how many conversations I've had with lenders like that over the past 30 to 45 days. That's one of the very first things they want to ask. Well, how much skin you got in it? I said, I got no skin in it. You want skin in it? I'm the wrong guy. You want to make a good, safe loan? I'm the right guy. Some of them chose the exit strategy quickly. And I was so glad to see them exit. Some of them jerked me around for a while before they finally decided they needed skin. The whole purpose of this conversation for the rest of this day is to eliminate skin. In fact, I want you guys to be skinless. Will sometimes you need to put skin in the game? Maybe. But we're going to do everything we possibly can to eliminate the need for skin in the game. And you're going to see how important private lenders are in that respect tomorrow. Now, in this case, I'm going to tell you, folks, if you've got a property that makes sense, and if you're a reasonably strong buyer, You won't have any problem getting lending institutions to loan you 75% of the value if the seller takes back the second. Now, some of them won't. Some of them want you to have skin in the game no matter what. And what do you do with those? Correct. You find somebody who wants to deal with you, just as we've been doing here since time began. And I'm going to tell you, we've been fighting this battle. I've been personally fighting it for a long, how long have I been personally fighting it? 5-6 weeks now, right?
6 weeks.
And it's been a fun ride, but we're about the end of that battle. We're about to the end. Maybe we'll never be to the totally end of it, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're a whole lot further along now finding people who want to do business with us when it comes to raising capital than we were a few months ago. And frankly, I just got involved in that about 6 weeks ago. And the very first question that I ask when I ask for a loan is, do you require me to have skin in the deal? And if the answer is yes, well, there's really no sense for us to go any further. Because if I wanted to put skin in every deal, I wouldn't need you. And pretty soon I'd be skinned. I wouldn't have any skin left. Now, isn't it normal and traditional for people to put skin in the game when they buy commercial properties? That's how most people know how to buy property. That's all they know. So they either come up with the money themselves or they go raise it from somebody else or a combination of the two. That's how things are done out there in the traditional world. Do you guys buy houses traditionally? No. Well, then you ain't going to buy commercial property traditionally either. Subordination is a great tool to keep you from putting skin in the game, but only if you use it correctly. And here's some important points down here at the bottom of the page, second page. Always work hard to lower the cash requirement to the seller. Remember, the less cash the seller needs, the less cash you got to borrow. The less cash you got to borrow, A, the cheaper the money, B, the easier the money is to get. When you offer lenders low loan-to-value ratio loans, they have a hard time refusing it. 2, you can't do subordination when you got a high debt on the property already, unless you're borrowing more than that debt and asking the seller to take back a second. 3, make sure the property will support the debt you go putting on it. Which is why, when I get a seller to take back a second mortgage on a property, guess what my first offer to them is? No payments, no interest. We got one property that's no payments, no interest for the first year.
Yes, for a year.
Well, what's wrong with a year? That's no payments and no interest for a year, isn't it? Okay. And how much do we owe that seller?
$14 million.
No, we paid 14. I think we owe that seller $12,600,325, or something like that.
You'd have answered at 6.
Okay. Now think about what that's worth. No interest for a year on $12.5 million. And how did we get that? Or how did he get it? I didn't get it. He did it. How did he get it?
For it.
Lapping his lips. By the way, he negotiated these deals. I've never met any of these sellers. I still haven't met them. To this day, I don't know who they are. Saw them on the street, I wouldn't know them. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, he was doing the negotiating. He was doing a great job. What I want to get involved for? Screw it up.
But it's extra magical when you can do the negotiating and have the coach letting you know what to say.
Yeah, well, I had to ramrod the deal. But A, he found the deal. He did all the negotiating. He got the sellers to agree. He developed a relationship. These people wouldn't know me from Adam. In other words, he got the seller to agree to no payments, no interest for the year. And on the other big deal we bought, it's 4% interest.
That's correct.
With no payments.
It's $12 million.
For a year on $12 million some odd debt. And I'll tell you something, man, there ain't much cheaper money than no payments and no interest. Except, sometime I'm going to find, hey, let me some money. Don't charge me any interest. Don't charge me any payments, and tell me I don't have to pay it back. They call that grant, I think. No, they're going to tack that interest on the end. Where you get that at? You sound like one of them sellers. There is no interest. Listen to me and listen closely. I said it already today. I'm going to say it again. I'm the buyer. I'm the one in control. I'm the one making the decisions where I want to buy the property. You guys don't ever lose sight of that. It is you making them the offer. You got two choices, three choices. Take it, leave it, or counter it. I will structure the offer to suit my needs. Now, when a seller comes back and says, I got to have interest, now obviously I'm going to do my best to counter that. Why do you need interest? Banks charge interest. You a bank? You more interested in getting property sold or getting interest? Do you know you got to pay taxes on interest? You sure you need interest? Well, many times the answer is no. Okay, what do they focus on? Selling. And I'm going to tell you, it is real easy to get short-term debt negotiated with no interest and no payments. Remember, this is short-term debt. I'm not asking them to finance me for 10 years with no interest and no payments. In this particular case, two that we bought, we have annual payments. One deal is interest only annually with a 3 or 4 year balloon. And one deal is no interest for the first year, but if we don't pay interest, if we don't pay the property off totally by the first anniversary, now all of a sudden we start paying interest from then on. These aren't stupid people we're negotiating with. They came back, but they made it workable. That's the whole key. Now, neither one of those involves subordination. Now, we do have one working that does involve subordination. All right, we got a property that we're closing on the 22nd in Michigan. Dale Kilgus is part of it, Rock's part of it. It's called Round Lake Estates. There's a road going in through here, and there's a lake back here, and there's lots all through here, and I don't even know what they look like. Anyway, there's lots all through. Anyway, there's 72 lots there altogether, and about 30 some of them are already developed. At least the road's in, but the utilities aren't. The others of them haven't been touched yet. And as I was telling you, this is one of those sellers who got into trouble and, has a hard time getting out of bed in the morning and screwed this deal up and screwed his family up and just made a big mess and obviously just ruined his reputation and everything there is in that city. Now, it's a nice project. It's a very nice property on a nice lake. It's crazy for it to be sitting there like this. So the seller wanted $2.8 million for this. We arrived at $2.8 million. I don't remember what they asked. $2.8 million purchase price. Got it? All right. And we structured this offer because, I had this conversation with Rock many times. We got to be able to buy this thing so we don't have to come up with our money to buy it. The seller said they'd take $1 million down and finance the 1.8 balance at what rate, Rock?
I don't remember.
0 interest, 1 year balloon.
That's right. Yeah.
0 interest, 1 year balloon. So we agreed that we'd take $1 million. They'd take $1 million down, and they'd take a $1.8 million mortgage back. But I asked them to let me subordinate. Let me get $1 million first, and let them take back a 1.8 second. They said, we'll let you do a $500,000 first, and we'll take back a 1.8 second. So they wouldn't let me do the $1 million. So I said, well, geez, that's good, but that means somebody I know that's dear and dear to my heart's got to come up with $500,000 to buy this property, and that sucks. So we worked at it a little bit harder, and we said, okay, tell them that I'll let them subordinate to my $1.8 million, or they can have $1.8 million a second, and I'll borrow $500,000, but we want 27 of the lots free and clear at closing. We arrived at 27, as I recall, which is a common way I do this. When I'm buying land, I always ask myself, what percentage of the total am I giving them down? As far as I'm concerned, we ought to get that same percentage of lots free at closing. What percentage am I giving them down? And isn't it true? In fact, this is how I did it now because the math works. There's 72 lots. I'm giving them a 40% down payment, give or take, aren't I not? Hello? Yes. All right, what's 40% of 72? 28, 27, 28. So we're getting 27 lots free and clear in lieu of the $1 million down payment. Hello? Got it? Okay. In addition to the 27 lots free and clear, they've given us the right to borrow $500,000 on the ones that aren't in the 27, the rest of them. They'll take back their second only on that group of lots. Make sense? So we can borrow $500,000 on their group, and we get our 27 lots free and clear. You guys look like you're really, really getting it. That's it. Okay. There's the project. This is in Traverse City, Michigan. And the realtor did this. Isn't that nice? The realtor made this up. I flew up there and she had this thing all ready, and man, she did a presentation like you wouldn't believe. And all I was asking is, how many hours she got in this thing? Anyway, there's the project. This is the part we're getting phase one over here, right?
That's right.
Okay. This project right here is done. I don't know how many lots is in there, but we're getting 27 of these free and clear. Now, the good news is the realtor's already got letters of intent on all these lots from builders. She had them before we met her. But she couldn't find anybody to get this thing closed so she could sell the lots. So this part, they're taking a mortgage of 1.8 on. This part we're getting free and clear. This part we can borrow 500 on, and they're going to subordinate and take back 1.8 on the second. Now, to make matters even interesting, he don't even know this yet. I've been dealing with a bank in Michigan that wants to loan me the money. Now, I tell this bank I need $1.5 million. And I tell them I need $1 million to buy it, and I need $500,000 to finish up phase 2 and phase 1. So I'm borrowing the money to buy it and finish it. And believe me, she can't wait to get this thing done so she can get these lots sold. So they'll be going like that. And as you can see, we got lakefront lots here. Now the bank says we'll do that. But we want a 1.5 first on the whole thing. So, the bank's always trying to screw up the deal here. So now the realtor is today trying to get the seller to allow us to put a 1.5 first on the whole project instead of just 500 on this one. And we'll find out what they want to do. And she knows the seller, and I think she can pull it off. If she can pull it off, the deal is funded, and they say they can close it by the 22nd. If she can't pull it off, between you and me, I'm going to do the stupid deal anyway. But I don't want the bank to know that. I already told the bank, I says, if I have to and I have to fund this and I fund this, will you get me some money back quickly? And they said, well, yeah, but we want a first on the whole thing. The bank loves the idea that the seller's taking back a second. You know why? It satisfies their need for somebody to have skin in the game. He told me that yesterday on the phone. Last night I was eating dinner. He says, we'll do the deal. We'll do the 1.5, but we don't want to be in this by ourselves. I said, well, you got me. Yeah, but we don't have any of your money in it. I said, I know. That's why I called you. Anyway, it's a beautiful project, and we're going to get it done one way or the other. And, Rock don't know it, but I've already, I know where the $800,000 coming from if I have to fund it myself. But if I do fund it myself, how long do you think it'll be before I have the $800,000 back? It'll be days. Days. Because, no, I'll get a loan from the bank or from someplace on this project. I'm just trying to get a local bank to go ahead and fund it. You know how hard it is to get a bank to fund the purchase of a project when they know they're lending more than I'm putting up in cash? But are they lending more than the purchase price? No. See, they're only lending about half the purchase price. That's what makes the deal workable. Incidentally, I'm going to get an appraisal on this week. But we already know that the sellout value is at or about or a little above $6 million on this project. Now I'm paying $2.8 for it, and we're going to spend $5 or $6, which she thinks $600,000 to get the whole thing finished up, and it'll sell as fast as we can get our hands on it. And she wants a lot on the lake. She meaning the realtor. Okay, so subordination played a big role in that, didn't it? Or it will. Who knows Scott Shield? Okay. This is his building. And he bought this building because subordination allowed him to pull money out of another property he bought that gave him the money to go to an auction and buy this one. He had a 24-unit apartment complex, and he got owner financing on it. He's smart enough to do that, overpaid for it, came to my MIS boot camp and said, what can I do with this mess? So I told him how to go home and fix it. And it was a 10-minute conversation, and to his credit, he went home and pulled an $848,000 check out of this 24-unit. He did that by getting the seller that he owed $700,000 or $800,000 to subordinate to new financing. So Scott borrowed $900,000. Now he took that $900,000, he had $848 of it left. He went and bought this building for $550,000 at an auction, and I understand it's worth over $5 million now 2 years later. Subordination made this building possible. Now think about this, the strange turn of events sometimes. If Scott hadn't have pulled the money out of that property A with one little technique, he wouldn't have bought property B. If Scott hadn't have bought property B, there's no telling where his career would have gone. He's leveraging one property to another, and that put him in the training business, and that, of course, gets him in a position to where students bring him deals, and it totally changes the direction of his future. It could have just as easily went the other way if Scott hadn't learned what the term subordination means. All right. Any questions on subordination before we go any further? If I gave you a test, could you define subordination for me? Will the seller feel exposed because of a high dollar amount on the second? Well, that's the reason this seller in this particular case on Round Lake would only let us borrow $500,000, not the whole million. They wanted to see us have skin in the game. I'm not sure they understand to this date that by giving us 27 free and clear lots, we're going to raise the other 500 on those. I'm not sure they've thought through that. I don't know, because I've never met these sellers. He negotiated this deal. Any questions on that? Oh, Dale. Actually, was Dale part of this negotiation?
Yeah, well, Dale was a point man, and he and I worked them together.
Okay. Number 2, get a private loan to borrow the down payment. Anybody in here recognize that building? Yeah, what is it? It's our offices at Global. You see, I bought that building from a bank in 1995. Actually, it was First Union Bank, which is now Wachovia. It was a repo. A builder built this building, and it was his office. And he moved out, sold it, and that person lost it to foreclosure. It's about a 14,000 square foot building, one of the best areas of town. So I bought the building from a bank. A broker brought me the building. A broker said they're asking $750 for this building, which already was a good buy, even back then in 1995. Back in 1995, things were a little different. Those of you can remember, we didn't have the vibrant economy that we got right now. And so I said, okay, what will it take to get it bought? He says, well, I'm not sure, but I'd probably bid about $550. I said, all right, let's bid $550. So we did. We wrote up a contract for $550,000, all cash. That is a big message here. All cash with no contingencies except clear title. I put up a $5,000 deposit. We got the bank to accept the contract. And they did. And we found out later that they had one on the table right then for $650, but it was contingent upon financing. They took ours for $550 because it was all cash with no contingencies. And the irony of it is, as soon as we got them to sign the contract, we went back to them and asked them for financing. We didn't make the offer contingent upon financing. We got the contract signed first, then we went to them for financing. They said, sure, we'll finance you for 75% of the purchase price. I said, well, that's cool, except where's the other 25 coming from? I said, that means I got to come up with 25%, which is $100 and some odd thousand. So I said to myself, let's see, I teach this stuff. I ought to be able to come up with something. So I did. I knew the building was worth every bit of $750,000. I was buying it for $550. The bank was going to loan me $437.5, I think. So all I had to raise was the difference between $437.5 and $550, and I still got a pretty decent loan-to-value ratio, don't I? Only because I bought it cheap. So I simply got a private lender to put up the $137.5. He loaned me the $137.5 at 15% interest, accruing interest with no payments. So we bought the building. 2 years later, we refinanced the building when we discovered it was worth $1.2 million. We refinanced it, I can't even remember how much. And then I donated the building to my old company because we wanted to actually add more value to taking it public, which was one of my more dumber mistakes. Donated the building, gave it away. and bought it back in 2003 for $1.2 million. Still losing sleep over that one. Now, what made that work? Borrowed the down payment from a private lender. The private lender still had a good, safe loan, did they not?
Yes.
Now, I'm sure the private lender would not have made me the loan if he wasn't sure I was going to pay it back. But that's what got me leveraged into the deal. Key points on page 38. You must get a lot of free equity to make that work. You can't expect a private lender to loan you the top 25% of the value if you're buying it at retail price. Can you? I mean, nobody's going to do that. Nobody with any sense anyway. What was my loan-to-value ratio anyway? Oh, here it is. I was only at 75% after I put the private second on it, which is a little higher than most private lenders will lend you, but still a lot of safety factor there. And remember, that's when we thought the value was $750. Frankly, it turned out to be worth considerably more than that because it didn't go up that much in value in 2 years. It was already worth close to 1.2 when I bought it. At that time, I didn't know any better, and I used the bank's appraisal, which tells you what. Yeah. In that particular case, it was low because it was a BPO that some realtor went out there and grossly undervalued the property. You must use your own private lenders. Don't think you're going to go to a bank or any private mortgage brokerage outfit and ask them to fund you to 75% of the value. Although I do know one that will do that. But if they do that, they want a 40% annual rate of return on the money they lend you for a down payment. Wait a minute now. That's a 40% annual rate of return on just the down payment money, not the purchase price of the property. You understand that? And they'll lend you the upper end. Okay, let's move on. The next one in your book is partners. Partners. This is the very first deal that Mr. Rockefeller Johnson brought me. Isn't it gorgeous? Well, you almost got a bus ride to take a look at it. By the way, it don't look any different in person than it does in the picture. Grass is grass is grass. This is 60 acres. In fact, Rock, I want you to tell them how you found this 60 acres.
I was actually, it was a Sunday afternoon, and my 5-year-old daughter is into horses. And this is Heath, Texas. Heath, that's known for its equestrian estates. Rusty Wallace lives right next door to this property. A very exclusive area, and everything is very pristine, well kept. People with money take care of their things. But this property was an ugly duckling. The fence was in desperate need of painting, and there was obvious distress. We really didn't care for the architecture of the house. There was a house and a barn and corral and all that stuff for horses, but it needed work. And we were about to go to Vegas to meet with Ron at the MIS, and got the idea that maybe this would make a good equestrian estate. And a previous prospective buyer had a concept plan that the realtor shared with me, and gave us the basic idea about it. And we dug a little deeper, and the property was worth about $1.5 million in its worn-out state, and we were able to get it from the bank for about 50% of that. And we've since added some other things to it. But I was looking for a house, to answer the question, I was looking for a house for my family.
Saw a sign on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we might want to point out this property was in foreclosure and had 2 loans on it. One loan on part of it and one loan on another part of it.
That's right.
And we tried to short sale it, and we tried to discount them, and we got cooperation from one loan and no cooperation from the other, and we had it under contract for $800, and then it turned into 8-something, then it turned into $900, and the price kept going up. So we bought it for $900. Now, the problem is it was $900 cash. So guess where the $900 cash came from?
A good partner.
Yeah. A guy with deep pockets, but short arms. Now, when we bought it, it looked like that grassy area there. Here's what it looks like now. Sort of. It's what it looks like on paper anyway. When you drive by it, that ain't what it looks like. But that's what it looks like. So Rock had this is the one we had done, right?
Right. That's a very early concept plan. The one that we've paid a few tens of thousands of dollars for looks a whole lot better than that one.
Okay.
That the city's approved.
They don't know the difference. You know, lines are lines. All right, now we bought this property. We had the drawings done, approached the city to get it approved. At the same time, Rock pointed out to me that, hey, there's adjacent property owners that we probably ought to approach to buy their property before we let the world know what we're going to do here, because if we don't get them before we do this, the price of them is going to go up a lot quicker. So we got one next door to it under contract at 63 acres that attaches to our 60 acres. Now, do you need to know a lot to know that you can make more money with 123 acres than you can make with 60 acres? And is it any harder to get the development done for 123 than it is 60? No. Does it take any longer? Well, sort of. Because we happen to be in two different cities. The city goes right down the middle of the property. Why don't you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, and actually it's 65 acres. Just as is the case in any investment, there's an area of mutual interest. I mean, if you're going to develop here, you want to make sure you capture everything that you can get around you. And we went after the adjacent property, which was 65 acres, and we secured it, unbeknownst to us when we acquired it, right down the middle, about at the 32-acre mark. It switches to another city. One's in Heath, and the other's in McClendon Chisholm. Fortunately, McClendon Chisholm is a stoplight in size. I mean, you blink and you're out of it. So they were real happy to do anything that might represent some increased revenue. So our entitlement process was pretty simple with them. Heath, on the other hand, was a little more difficult, but we kind of stacked the deck on that one because we employed as our PE the 6-term mayor of the city of Heath. So,
PE, what's PE?
Professional engineer.
Okay. So have we got the approval for the 60 acres yet?
Not in writing, but we've gotten it verbally, yes.
When will we get it in writing?
Probably within the next 3 or 4 days.
Okay. Then we'll be cleared, because he's already got drawings of the 63 acres that attach to the 60 acres, and I don't have that map with me. So we have the whole thing already platted out. All we need is this final stamp of approval, and now we're ready to do what? Start developing it if that's what we want to do. However, we don't own the 63 acres. We have an option to buy it. So we got to raise the $2 million to buy the 63 acres, but it would be a good thing if we bought that property before we started selling it. Yeah. It'd be a good thing we bought that property before we start putting roads in it. So we're going to buy that. We're going to do that. We're going to get a loan to buy that and develop the rest of the property. And give them the numbers, Rock. If it's going to cost us how much to do the entire development and acquire all of the land, and it's going to be worth how much when we're done?
Including the barns?
Oh, we're going to put barns on it.
Stables.
Stables, right, where horses poop and eat. And people pay to have a place to put horse where he can poop and eat. And that's another cash machine.
Absolutely. 50-stall equestrian center with about 25 acres of riding trails, full dressage. A world-renowned trainer is going to actually come and run the facility for us. The land acquisition, both parcels, the 60 and the 65, are about $3 million, a little under $3 million. And the actual development is about $6 million. So it's a little under,
including the barns, yeah.
Including the barns, right? So about $9 million, and the retail value, the least expensive lot will go for $175,000. There'll be 82 lots. 17 of the lots are lakefront, where there are 2 ponds on the property that we're expanding, such that 17 of the 82 lots will be lakefront. And we actually did that as a means of turning lemons into lemonade, because one of the things we failed to realize when we bought this is about 30 acres of the first 60 acres is in a floodplain. We couldn't build in it.
Right in here.
Yeah. So
we couldn't build in it, but horses could run in it
and you can
poop on it.
That's right.
Yep.
And you can make a lake out of it. And as you know, anywhere in the country, lakefront lots sell for more than landlocked lots. So the total value is about $17 million. There's about $8 million in profit.
So how do you create lakefront property? Dig a hole. Got waterfront property. Yep. All right. Now, how did Rock acquire that property? What tool did he use? He got a partner. He got a partner to put up the money. That's how he acquired that property. No fancy acquisition technique on this deal. You write the check and you get the deed, And sure, we bought it cheap, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
Did we? Yeah, or we wouldn't have bought it. Okay. Here's another project that's near and dear to our hearts.
Oh, that's real special.
That's real special. Yeah. Tell them about this one, Rock.
This property is right next to the third only soccer-specific stadium in the United States, and it'll be the largest. And it also happens to be in downtown Frisco, Texas. It's on Main Street, Frisco. Frisco, according to USA Today and some other periodicals, ranks within the 1, 2, or 3 as far as fastest growing cities based on number of new families moving in. This project is developed. The adjacent project is being developed by the Hunt family. It's a Hunt Sports Group development in conjunction with the city of Frisco, over a $75 million property. And we're proposing a mixed-use development. We're calling it Frisco Center, and it'll consist of residential, retail, entertainment, convention center. We were on the phone yesterday with, I don't know how many, any of you guys know John Q. Hammonds? Does that name ring a bell? Okay. If you know Mr. Hammonds, he's one of the biggest hotel developers in the country, and we've got him flying in tomorrow to propose to buy and place a hotel right next to this property to capture all the traffic. The city is predicting that over 3 million visitors will come and visit the soccer facility. Well, in order to, when you come out of the soccer stadium opens out facing our property. You have the Dallas North Tollway on the west, and immediately on the east, the very next property.
Where's
is
soccer?
our property.
Down here?
Soccer is where it says FC Dallas. Here.
Right there?
That's the soccer. Well, actually, this is here and here.
All of our property is the ones in the dark lines here, all the way up.
Exactly.
And this is the soccer over here. Okay?
We're proposing, and the city's asked us for some high density. We're proposing 6 475,000 square foot luxury condominiums. And the total budget for the project is over $800 million. And with a budget of over $500 million and a value of over $1.4 billion.
Another day at the office. All right. Rock, the purchase price of this property is what?
Including the last piece, about $17 million.
Well, actually, let's go ahead and tell them that. We didn't buy all of this at one time.
Right.
We've actually bought 3 pieces of this.
Correct.
We bought all of this down here,
Right.
which was 30-something acres.
That's right, 36.
Purchase price of that was $14.6 million.
Correct.
Which, would make anybody's pantyhose pucker up. Okay? Then we bought this 2.5 acres with owner financing, short-term balloon, down payment, which I wrote a check for. And we have this 6 acres under contract now.
Correct.
To make a total of 46 acres. And we have these 2, we bought these 2 at the same price as we bought these 2, this property. And frankly, you go to the mall, come back, price of this goes up.
Absolutely.
All around this thing, there's activity going on as fast as it can go. And truly the value increases on a daily basis. So we bought the property, the first batch, for $14.6 with 1.95 down.
Correct.
And incidentally, guys, this is the biggest earnest money check I've ever written in my life to date. And in fact, I want to tell this story. I wrote a check for $450,000 earnest money deposit. That'd put some of you in your grave. Even if you had the money, it'd put some of you in your grave. However, was the money at risk, Rock? When I wrote the check?
No.
No. Why wasn't it at risk?
Because you have a due diligence period.
I think we have, 60 days?
Right.
We have 60 days to determine whether we want to buy the property. And folks, this is an extremely important lesson. I put the money up. Granted, I didn't like it. But I knew that I had 60 days to determine whether I wanted to move forward. And you know I'm not going to move forward with this thing until I got all my facts. Now, there's even more important message here. You want to describe the history of this property before we got involved and why the sellers decided to deal with us.
This was actually part of originally a 136-acre piece. The sellers bought this property over 20 years ago. They probably paid for the whole 136 acres, and this is all conjecture, only a few $1,000s. And it was all farmland, and now it's gone from farmland to being right in the path of the fastest growing area in North Texas. So it went from being sold by the acre to being sold by the foot, and that's a phenomenal, wonderful thing when that happens. So using a short sale technique, and the guy that I bought the house from was a partner with a guy who was proposing to develop a resort on this property, but he didn't close. He didn't close not once. He didn't close twice, and he brought me over, introduced me to the sellers, and part of the reason he didn't close is because he didn't structure his deals right from the outset. He tried to do something that he couldn't do, which was to cash this deal out. And I knew that we'd be hard pressed, and no one in their right mind, unless you've got billions of dollars, is going to propose to come and spend 60 days due diligence and maybe another 30 or 60 days, and you're going to cash out a $17 million property. That's not how it's done. And I knew the sellers knew that, and so we went in and we were using. If we couldn't get terms, we didn't have a deal, and I made that clear to him before I ever met with him. And he said, "Well, come on by and talk with us, and let's see what will happen." Well, we went over and proposed the terms, and the terms were, we went back and forth over about a 2-week period, and finally they took us seriously because we were willing to, as Ron said, most people were talking about a $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 type of earnest money deposit, and we came in with a very strong earnest money deposit. I told
Whose idea was that? Don't tell me that was your idea.
Well, it was a little bit of both of our ideas, but you
tell me this.
I think I had no idea what Ron's capacity was. I'm glad he had the ability to do it, because that did make all the difference in the world. When we told them that we would come in with that big of an earnest money deposit, they knew we were serious. And because of that, if you're giving them something, of course you got to ask for something. So I asked for longer time, and I also said, if we're going to come with that kind of money, surely you can give us a year to close the whole thing out, and without paying any interest at the outset, and they agreed. And also they wanted 8% interest, and I told them that was way too much, and we finally settled at 5% interest after the first year. So, that's...
So we actually got a year to pay them off with no interest.
Correct.
But we got, I think, 3 years to pay them off.
Correct. Totally.
With a payment due in June of $1.5 million, of which all we got to do is close on any of the tracks, and we've met that goal. And this is very important, you guys, when you're structuring offers on land. All they want is a principal payment of $1.5 million due in a year. Follow that? Well, if we close on any of these tracts of land, that obligation is met.
And we've already got people calling on that corner piece that we bought for $5 a foot. They're offering us $25 a foot.
This is hot land down here. You don't get much hotter land than this. In fact, the whole thing is hot. Very, very hot. But we let the seller tell us what the release clauses would be for each of these tracts. In other words, they assigned $1 per square foot that they would take to release each one of these tracts. And I will tell you that the amount that they assigned obviously is considerably less than what it's worth. And we knew that going in, but as time's gone by now, it's even worth more.
That's right.
In fact, we got recent appraisals on this thing that neither one of us I think are realistic, but they're twice as much as we paid for it, so they're okay.
That's right.
They're okay. And here's the thing. We got in the game. We're playing the game, but we didn't know how the game was going to work out. We still don't know how the game's going to work out. We do know that people are coming at us now, very, very serious people, about as serious gets. And we're entertaining what the best exit strategy is. Somebody comes along and writes us a big check for this whole property. We're going to have about a 30-second board meeting. And the board's going to vote to get filthy, stinking rich and move on to the next one, which I haven't showed you yet. Or perhaps somebody will come in and want to partner with us to develop this part or all of this, and we take a piece of the back end and get cashed out of the property on the front end, which of course is my favorite exit strategy, and his. And along the way, we very well may decide to build something on there ourselves. Not easy, not hard to get the money to build something on that property for sure. So within the next couple of weeks, I'd say we're going to come to a conclusion on that, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely.
Now, we've only owned this property for 6 months. Bought it in October, didn't we?
August, wasn't it?
Huh?
August. Wasn't it
No.
August?
You got a contract on it in August. You closed on it in October.
Okay. I remember.
I do. I do.
I'm too busy working.
Yeah, okay. All right. So anyway, partners are a pretty important part of your path in the way of commercial property. Now, when I write a check, there's two very important things that I want in exchange for that check. Number one, I will not write a check unless we get free equity. If I don't get free equity, I ain't writing no check. And number two, I want that check back quickly. Now, I'm going to tell you, my definition of quickly and reality of quickly in this case did not match. Because I wrote these checks in September and October, and to this day I don't have that money back, but I'm about to. Next week I'll have that money back. Next week, we will be at the point where I'll have none of my own money invested in any property in Dallas, I hope. If not, very close to it. Should be at that point. And from that point on, they're kind of nothing down deals, aren't they? But without the use of the partner, none of these deals would have been applicable, even though the partner, the idea is to get the money back. I'll tell you one thing, any deal I do in the future, I'll get the money back a lot faster than I did on these deals. You see, we bought the hardest kind of property on earth to finance.
Absolutely.
What is it?
Land.
Vacant land. Vacant land. It doesn't mean it's not financeable, don't get me wrong. It's just that there's a lot of, any lender would much rather finance something that's got cash flow or got income in or got a potential of it than vacant land. All right, now here's another property that Rock's going to tell you about. Use part of seller's property to borrow down payment. Now, I could show you examples of the one I just left to show you why we can do that anytime we want. I could take the money out of this property. In fact, let me just show you that so you'll know. Some of you have seen it. We got this property appraised. Every piece of this has been appraised. In fact, Rock did a smart thing afterwards. We had this property appraised before we bought it. And we've had a property appraised again since. But what Rock did, that I don't have a drawing of, is he took some of these tracts and he cut them in half and cut them in pieces and had each little piece appraised. Little pieces are worth more per foot than big pieces. Yep. But we know that this one 10-acre tract right here alone appraised for $6.7 million. We only paid $14.4 for the whole thing. And on this, and as this entire parcel goes, that's one of the least valuable parcels on the whole project. And the reason I had this parcel appraised first separately is because it had the lowest release clause per square foot that the seller assigned to all the property. That make sense? So I said, let me see, it's 10 acres, it's got the lowest release clause per square foot. Let me do my math here. If this thing appraises at $6.7 per square, $6.7 million, let's say I went and borrowed $4 million on it. If I borrowed $4 million on it, it would take $1.7 million to release the property. Everybody with me?
Yep.
If I borrowed $4 million on it, it would take $1.7 to pay off the seller. And would that automatically satisfy the upcoming $1.5 debt as well? Yes? But if I borrowed $4 million on it, where would the other $2 million go? How much did I put down on the property? $2 million. You get it? We could have easily, I don't know about easily, used the tract. We could have used the seller's property to raise the money to buy the seller's property. Now this one has nothing to do with subordination, does it? Okay. We didn't ask sellers to subordinate. These sellers wouldn't have subordinated. They're way too sophisticated to subordinate. They didn't need to subordinate. And frankly, I don't think they really care whether they sell this thing or not. They sure didn't need to. But what we're getting to right now is probably the most commonly used technique that I use to acquire land with. And that is figure out how to borrow money on part of the land to buy all of the land. But it also works with other types of properties as well. We could have, if I would have done it and got it working in time, we could have closed a $4 million loan on that parcel simultaneously with buying the property. Close the loan and the purchase same day. Paid a $2 million down payment, paid off the 1.7, and not had any money in the property. Well, I went ahead and closed it because I figured we'd go get that loan. Frankly, I don't know why we don't have that loan. I guess we just forgot to go borrow the money. I don't know.
One other thing about that property that I don't know if we fully appreciate the value of is the city of Frisco has offered us, for starters, a $30 million TIF. You know what a TIF is? Okay, it's an acronym.
TIF is an acronym for gift.
That's right. That's probably right. Basically, tax incremental financing, and typically it's a form of recapturing some of what the investor or developer has to put into a property. But as Ron said, it's basically a gift. I mean, if you can get part of, you're going to develop it anyway. You put in $30 million, and we'll give you $30 million. You know, so what did you net? You know, in the deal, but you still have the value of that money. Tax incremental financing, TIF. $30 million right now, and once Mr. Hammond gets here and other people that we're talking to, I'm sure that'll go up.
Question, yeah?
When you went back after this deal had gone further, Ron said that you had drawn up, subdivided one of those parcels.
Yes, sir.
Was that with zoning approval, or you just took a piece of paper and made lines?
No, what we figured out was in order to make it easier for the appraiser to get us better numbers, this is no longer an agricultural area. This is now a more urban area. It's hard to find tracts as big as our tracts, and with an appraisal, it's all about comparables. So there weren't any comparables that sold at a high enough price. The only reason that was the case is because we asked the appraiser to appraise a 6-acre tract. We did that. So in the same breath, we could change that and say, instead of appraising one 6-acre tract, why don't you appraise 4 1.5-acre tracts? There are lots of 1.5-acre tracts that sell for a lot more than any one 6-acre tract.
Okay. We drew the lines was the answer to your question.
Right.
And you didn't need zoning. Zoning wasn't the issue. There's already zoned commercial.
Exactly.
We just cut it up into pieces. And how do you cut up a piece of property, guys? Well, you don't. You don't. You have a surveyor cut up the piece of property.
Right.
The surveyor assigns the legal description to it. Voila, you got a legal description. So if I take a whole and I cut it into 4 pieces, I only sell a fourth of it. So when I deed the property away, I only deed away the legal description that matches that fourth. Now, you don't want to do that on residential lots until you confer with the city, of course, that that lot is big enough for somebody to put a house on. Commercial lots, you should also get city approval, but this isn't like we got to go get it rezoned. All right, let's move on here, because I'm telling you, you better get this technique, because it not only works with land, but it also, in fact, I got a great example in here of a property that I actually did buy using this technique. Look on the bottom, page 41. You're buying 5 4-unit apartment buildings on 5 separate lots. Each is worth $160,000 for a total of an $800,000 ARV. Your seller's a lousy landlord and happy to unload for $500,000, but he wants cash. You can borrow 75% of the 480, which is 360, which is 3 buildings times the 160. Now, you got to follow my thinking here. I'm buying 5 buildings for $500,000. But the problem is, if I go to a bank and I want to borrow 500, what are they going to lend on? 75% of the 500 or 75% of the 800? 75% of the 500, which comes to 360. I can borrow $360,000 on a $500,000 purchase price, can't I? Yes? But if I write the contract up to where all 5 buildings, I got no leverage here. So I simply pull out my little creative juices. I said, well, 3 buildings are worth $480. I'm not paying $480, but that's what they're worth. Why don't I write these 3 buildings up at retail value of $480, which can be easily supported with appraisals? Now I'll borrow the $360 on the $480. Follow me? Okay, well then, where am I going to get the other $140 that I need to complete the $500,000 purchase price? On the other 2 buildings that I got free and clear at closing. So I tell a seller, I'll buy these 3 buildings for $360. I'll buy the whole property for $500, but this is how we're going to write it up. I want building 4 and 5 free and clear, so I can go borrow at least $140,000 on it to make up the difference between the $360 I borrowed on the other 3 and the $500 I need. Now, who don't have any idea what I just said? I separated the seller's asset into pieces so I could borrow money on part of the asset to get the seller the cash I need to buy the whole asset. Now, that's not the same thing we just did on that property up there, because the seller financed part of that property, didn't they? But did I still take part of the seller's asset to buy all the seller's asset? In fact, here is the beautiful example of that one. This is another one near and dear to our heart. This is in Forney, Texas. And in fact, if you go through Forney, Texas quickly, you will not know you just been through Forney, Texas. However, it is the antique capital of the world, isn't it? Forney, Texas is another one of those cattle towns that happen to be right on the edge of Dallas and in the path of progress and close to downtown where people can live in the country and drive to the city.
Less than 20 minutes away. And residents of Forney will argue that it has more potential than Frisco does. And we tend to kind of believe that when you have the likes of Ross Perot with major positions in the area, the Huffines family, which is a big automotive family in Texas, they have major holdings in the area. As Ron mentioned earlier, one of the telltale signs of growth is when Walmart moves in. Well, Walmart is less than a mile away from our property now, and that has happened over the past 6 months. And smart money says this is a good place to be. You know, the way Dallas is growing, if we go any further north, we'll be in southern Oklahoma. So the logical place to go is east or southeast. The Hunts have property out here. It's growing at an incredible rate. It's extra exciting to us because we don't have 46 acres here. We've got almost 800 and something. Right?
Shy of 800 acres.
Right, a little under 800, a little over 800.
800 acres.
Yeah, over 800 acres.
Whatever. You know.
And the same thing is happening here, but instead of being Johnny late to the party, we're in early enough so that we'll take the position that our seller in Frisco took, and that people are coming to us to buy, and we're the ones who bought it by the acre, and we can now sell it by the foot.
How do you think you look to the entire surrounding community when you just jump in and scoop up 800 acres all of a sudden?
Well, I'll tell you how you look. According to the mayor of the city, they know that we're looking for other property, and he personally called me to say, Rock, y'all are making some people nervous. You already own the best property in the city, and I spoke to him yesterday, as a matter of fact. Before would you please come and meet with me and tell me what your plans are? And he's a great guy, and they love what we're proposing to do, and I got to be political. I'm in town here.
We don't care. We're leaving.
Yeah, right. there may be spies here. But we're in a fantastic position because all the growth is happening, and we've already got a large stake there.
Yeah. All right. Now, this was bought from an 86-year-old man, wasn't it?
83.
83. How do you find him?
Referral. Actually, I'm going back to the previous business. I bought this guy's mother's house. She had just passed away. It was a junker. I bought it for $50,000. I sold it for $92,000. He happened to be a custom builder. He was amazed that, I said I would do it, and I did it. He then came to me with another house that he had, a custom house that I also bought from him, and bought that one at $280,000, and I sold it at $550,000. And I actually moved into that one. And he's been a long-time resident of this area, and he said, listen, I don't know if you'd have any interest. He mentioned this deal to me 8 months before we actually got serious about it. So I've got a guy who wants to get out of the business, and he's 83. His kids aren't really interested in all the land holdings. He happens to be the second largest landholder in this area, and he has, almost 1,200 acres in the area. And would you have an interest? And at the time, I told the guy no. I must have told him no 5 times. It's amazing. That wasn't our deal. I mean, we were doing single-family homes, and I really could not see that angle at that time. But something registered. I think it was when I was walking down the aisle at Home Depot and said, hey, just add some more zeros and you get to rest longer. Then I said, Foster, tell me about that deal again. And I still had the maps over in the corner collecting dust. I said, listen, the only way that'll happen is we got to have great terms. And talked to Ron about it, mentioned it, and Ron says, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I came up with some, that was Ron saying that. I came up with some terms, and I like to say that we're a great negotiator, but Mr. Red is very basic. We sat there. The guy at 83 still works every day. Very, very successful. And we came in with this nice, slick letter of intent. All the things Ron's going to tell you, and that's a bunch of crap because Mr. Red didn't want to see any of that. He took my offer. And, we had pondered this deal. I must have had a half a dozen conversations with Ron about how to structure it. He took it, and he was gracious. He didn't tell us he didn't like it, but he didn't like it. And he came back with a deal, and our guard was up thinking that, okay, here comes a fight. And we looked at it for a couple hours, and then I realized, I said, wait a minute, what he's willing to do is better than what I'm asking him to do. You remember that?
Yeah,
that?
Sure do.
And I said,
we got to hire this guy.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we went back to him and said, well, Mr. Red, if you just got to have it that way, well, doggone it. Okay.